Okay, I will bring the September 25th agenda to bring the meeting to order. First order of business, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing as none, could we have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Mr. Eve, I would make a motion to adopt the agenda as has been presented.
Thank you. Councillor King has made a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Move on to number 2, regular council minutes of September 11th. And there was an error in the procedural portion of it in 338.18.8.7. So I would be looking for a motion to reconsider.
Was that 339?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I've scribbled over top of that. Sorry, 339.18.
Mr. Eve, again, I would make a motion that we reconsider motion 339/18 from the September 11th minutes.
Okay, Councillor King has made the motion. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing as none, we'll vote on it. Put the question out there. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Yes, Councillor King. Sorry, Councillor McGee.
No worries. I wish to withdraw the original motion, 339.18.
Thank you, Faye. Motion's been made to withdraw. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next on our agenda is 5.0.
Motion to approve.
Oh.
Minutes.
I am losing it this morning. I would like to get a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Christie. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing as none, all those in favor? And that also is carried unanimously. Now we will move on to 5.1, transportation. And anytime you are ready, Lori.
Good morning, Mr. Reeve and Council. I'm bringing to you this morning an update on our Municipal Services division. The last update Council had was, I believe, sometime last April. So this kind of comprises a lot of our projects and activities over the summer and kind of what we're doing to finish up this fall. So in our Planning and Development Department, we've had significant activity there over the past little while. To date, subdivisions, we've had 20 developments, permits, we've issued 64. And of those, 21 are discretionary and 43 are permitted. So the 21 will be ones that MPC would approve, and the 43 are ones that we can approve under our current land use bylaw. Redesignations, we've seen 3. Safety code permits, we have issued 173. These numbers are as of September 15th. We're pretty much on track to meet or exceed where we've been over the previous couple of years. And just we'll go over some of the bigger developments that we have. Solterra, they have their CFIA approval to operate. They're testing their equipment. The probably be another 4 to 6 weeks before they're operational. And they're also working on their international approvals permits. One of the other big developments in the area has been the wedding barn, and they're nearing their completion. And the other one, a couple other ones are indoor riding arena. They're nearing completion as well. And our solar farm, that was approved at our August MPC. And one of the couple last ones are Huxley Ball Diamond. I believe that is completed. It was operational this summer. That was partially funded by Kneehill County through a grant as well. Grains Connect, they're pouring their foundation. That's nearing completion, and then they'll work on some other stuff throughout the winter that they can. And our kennel operations, that's near the Hesketh area, and they're starting their building process. This is a kennel that specializes in hunting and service dogs. Cannabis update. We had an initial presentation May 22nd with the Committee of the Whole. Public consultation was held August 7th. First reading August 21st. Public hearing was is going to be today, September 25th. So just a couple of things about this. This was the direction received from Council, from the Committee of the Whole. Medical production, which is current, must be rezoned to industrial district, is a discretionary use in the industrial district. Medical production, this is proposed. Additional details that must be provided with the application. And retail and recreational production, this is what's proposed in the bylaw, must be rezoned to direct control, 300-meter setback to public uses, 100-meter setback from another cannabis facility, and notification within half-mile of proposed location. So that kind of concludes our planning and development activities. Ag services and parks. We had hosted Growing Kneehill County Market and Long Table Dinner. That was held on July 18th at Horseshoe Canyon. And this was held this year in conjunction with Alberta Open Farm Days. We had nearly 1,600 people visit Horseshoe Canyon during that time frame of the long table, or of the market and the long table dinner. So that's approximately from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. We had, the same time last year, we had only about 900 visitors. So we are seeing a substantial increase in traffic to the site. We had 86 people attend our long table dinner, and promoted a lot of our local producers and vendors at the dinner. Ag services and parks. We've completed a third of the county spraying this year. Spot spraying and reverse fence line spraying for the season throughout the county. Rental equipment is still going out, and it is very active. We've set another record year this year. We completed our club route survey. Nothing was found. Bertha armyworm survey, and there was some minimal numbers noted. Completed grasshopper survey, same thing there, some minimal numbers. And we've sold out a 2% strychnine. The deadline for that was June 30th, and we were completely sold out prior to that. Roadside mowing, that's ongoing right now. We are about 75% complete. The weather hasn't helped with that project, but he does have until October 31st. So it's anticipated that he'll be done ahead of the schedule. So as well, under the Ag Services and Parks portfolio is our cemeteries. We did have a couple of projects there this summer. One was fenced and seeded the laneway into the Gates Cemetery. Gates Cemetery is a very old cemetery. It is closed, so there's no more burials there, but we still do have to provide access, and it is into the middle of Four Quarters is where it is situated. So to provide ease of access there, we have fenced it and seeded it. That post that you see in the picture will come out once the seeding, the grass has had a chance to take root. And we also repaired several broken and abandoned headstones there. So you can see some in some of the pictures there. This one on the bottom right-hand corner is one that was broken, and they've reset them and cleaned them up. So, and in our parks, Keevers Lake Park, we've leveled a few more of the front stalls right along the lakeside. We can continue to remove some old and dangerous trees that they're quite old in that area, and windstorms put some of them at jeopardy. And we were affected quite a bit there with the spring floods as well. So we've done some work to repair some of the damage there. We've also worked with some of the drainage issues we've noted at the administration building last year, and we've added some gravel and drainage on both the front and the back. And people, Orkney is one of our other more active sites. We continue to have issues there with people still throwing garbage over the lookout edge. So we're not too sure what else to do there. We have fenced it to try and reduce that, but it still is a concern that we will have to address at some point in time. This is our Horseshoe Canyon site. So this picture here that you see, this is a picnic shelter that was built and completed this year on the main lookout. I believe we can set about 6 or 8 picnic tables in there, so very much used. This other picture up here is the steps and the walkway and the rope hand railing that has been installed to ease access for pedestrians down to the bottom of the canyon. We replaced the barbed wire fence along the west border. We re-tinned the outhouses. There is another outlook that we have added on the east side. And we continue to work on the trail network system on the upper plateaus there. The master plan that is being prepared by McElhaney is about 50% complete. There was a lot of information that they took from visitors to the site over the summer, and council will see that in October and November. And the locator sign, this one here in the bottom right-hand corner, that has been replaced as well. The site is, as you know, was rented out after the September long weekend, and they've had some delays with the weather and whatnot. It is anticipated that the site will still be closed to the public till about October 12th. And that's it for Ag Services. So Protective Services. So our peace officers continue with the rural patrols. You can see some pictures here of Officer Chabello as well, reaching out with the school program. So since July 1st, our peace officers have completed over 18,000 kilometers of rural patrol. That's miles, or 18,000 kilometers on our rural roads. We've also begun advertising for a new level 1 peace officer. Officer Kerwin has left our organization for one to the south. We wish him all the best. And we also were successful. We received a $10,000 grant for traffic safety. So this was a grant that we applied with through the provincial government, and we'll be working on measures for that over the next year with Officer Chabella. Our fire department, oh, I went a little too quick here. Fire Chief Ross continues to compile information on fire services for our rural fire strategy. That'll be presented to council in October. Torrington Fire Hall, we have that as a project to do some renovations and maintenance. That's ongoing this fall, and it will probably continue into next spring. And we're working on the budgets for the fire department as well too. Protective Services, this week our external safety audit is being completed. We have an auditor from Lethbridge County, yes. I couldn't remember where it was. So this is an exchange. We have to have an external audit once every 3 years. And this is our year, so that's taking place this week. Emergency management, we have a planned tabletop exercise planned for October 12th. That's going to be hosted in Acme, and we'll be working with all of our CREMA partners and the different agencies in the area on that. Environmental services. So we continue to see additions onto our rural water distribution network system. We've had 5 new installations for service, one in Huxley, one in Equity, 2 on our Granger system, and 1 on our Selkirk system. Huxley Water Sewer Services were extended as well to one of our unserviced lots, and you can see in the picture on the left there, that's where that was. And we did have to do a major repair on a pressure release valve on our Selkirk system. So this just gives a couple of pictures. There's the cracked fitting in the middle picture and the new fitting. We also repaired a water leak on the Selkirk water line. Torrington fire pump repaired at the pump house. Water main break in Torrington along Railway Avenue caused us a little bit of grief. And we just want to also state our Churchill water system. We have had multiple disruptions in service over this past summer that has resulted in very limited pressure or no water. So this seems to be caused with severe problems with the pumps, which will require some repairs. Currently, we are just running on one booster pump. One of the pumps is in for repairs, and we are just running on the one pump. But the Churchill water project that we have planned will alleviate much of these problems that we are having. And we did do some signage, roadside signage indicating our transfer station, so that's been increased, and we've completed the fencing around Carbon and Three Hills transfer sites, or it's close to completion. Operations. So right now our shoulder pole project is nearing completion. We plan to do 58 miles this year in total, and I believe we have about 7 miles left. And same thing, we have had some delays with weather, but hopefully in the next week or so they'll be able to complete that. Our other project that's going on right now is 25-1 Range Road 25-1, the rebuild. It has started. I believe they're in about day 8 or so. They've also had some delays due to rain. We also have a bridge file that we're working on, so that is at the northeast of 63125. It's a single span wood bridge, and it is being replaced with two large culverts. So we're just waiting on the pipe right now. It has been delayed. And our 3-year gravel stockpile contract, we're in the 3rd year of that. And that haul is currently taking place to our Barrett pit, which is just north of Carbon. That project should be complete around the 15th of November. Our Sharples Road, which is another road project in the wings, all approvals have been received, and we're hoping to tender that later this fall with the rebuild happening in 2019. And we're ready for this. That concludes the update. Mr. Reeve.
Thank you, Ms. Watt. Very comprehensive. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, could we have a motion to receive for information?
I move for information.
Thank you. Councillor Kiever moves for information. I'll wait for that to go up on screen. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much, Lori. We are going to move to 3.1 delegation. We have a delegation, Mr. Jeff Nixon, Mr. Kevin Miller. You can come and we'll introduce ourselves and you can start after that. Welcome. It's good to see you guys here. We'll introduce council. We'll start from my right.
Debbie Penna, Division 2.
Wade Christie, Division 6.
Jerry Whitstock, Division 3.
Ken King, Division 7.
Glenn Kieber, Division 4.
Faye McGee, Division 1.
Thank you.
Okay. We are municipal accountability advisors with Alberta Municipal Affairs. Our role is to help support municipalities with the legislative requirements of the Municipal Government Act, the Local Authorities Elections Act, and other acts and regulations that fall under the purview of the Minister of Municipal Affairs. In March of 2018, the Honourable Shay Anderson, our Minister of Municipal Affairs, announced the delivery of a new program called the Municipal Accountability Program, or the MAP program. It's a mandatory program for all municipalities in Alberta under 5,000, and all of these municipalities will participate once every 4 years. The list of the order of these reviews is done randomly. We do a little bit of making sure that we kind of catch all the different statuses of municipalities. So we've got some summer villages, some villages, towns, and counties as well. But otherwise, it's a random distribution. The one big thing of the Municipal Accountability Program is this is not a governance review. Our intent is only to look at legislative compliance with the Municipal Government Act. So as such, we won't be interviewing council today or members of the public. Basically, we're just here and our focus is to help municipalities navigate the Municipal Government Act, especially with some of the new changes that have come about recently. It's also worth noting today that this review was scheduled well in advance of the petition that was just recently received by the Minister's office, so we are not here in regards to that petition in any way. We will work collaboratively with your CAO and we'll develop a customized report that will detail both the areas that you're doing quite well and the areas where there might be some gaps to meet legislative compliance. And we'll also be able to provide resources and advisory services available to, if there are any gaps, that they can, will be there to support and help the municipality achieve that. Once we've issued our report, the Minister does expect a response from the municipality on how you're going to address those areas of concern. You'll have 8 weeks from when your report is received to provide a response to the Minister. And from there, you'll have 1 year to implement any changes that you're going to make in order to meet any legislative gaps that are determined. The report can be used as a template in that response as well and provided back to us. There will be nothing confidential in the report whatsoever, so it's our expectation that your CAO will share it with council and with the public in an open council setting once it has been received. Our attendance today is simply to observe the council meeting and for those legislative compliances. So as such, outside of this short presentation, we won't be participating in this meeting today in any way. We'll just be observing. Thank you very much once again for having us here today. And if there are any questions, we are here to answer them.
Well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your presence. Does council have any questions for Mr. Miller or Mr. Nixon? Seeing none, I guess you guys are off the hook. Thank you very much. We look forward to your report. All right, our next item on our agenda is 5.3.1, Bylaw 1774. Ms. Hazelton, you're presenting, and whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Reeve, members of council. I'm coming to you with Land Use Bylaw amendment from Agriculture District to Recreation District. This is regarding an application that we've received from John and Susan Ham for Home Place Ranch. They have applied to redesignate 70 plus or minus acres of the northeast of 32, 31, 25, west of 4 from Agriculture District to Recreation District. The majority, 66 plus or minus acres of the proposed lands, are fragmented pasture and coulee. 4 acres will be lands located in the northwest portion of the quarter. The subject parcel is located approximately 10 miles west of Three Hills and is bound by Highway 583 on the north and Highway 586 on the, or 806 on the east. The purpose of the application is to create several drop-in campground areas with trails and some cabins. The applicant is also wanting to develop a country recreational lodge rehab retreat center for rehabilitation and treatment of various addictive natures and reconciliation of marriages that are struggling. Under the current land use bylaw, redesignation is required to develop a campground and recreational lodge retreat center. The proposed lodge will be located on an approximately 4-acre portion of the proposed 70-acre redesignation. This 4-acre portion will be completely separate from the 66-acre campground portion. The remainder will be for the campground areas and trails. This parcel currently has an existing farmstead. The majority of the lands to be redesignated have a CLI rating of 5, with a small portion rated CLI 4. Only a small portion of the lands to be redesignated have been cropped. There are no proposed subdivisions for this property. First reading was conducted on August 21st, 2018, and the public hearing was held on September 11th at 9 a.m. Second reading was also done on September 11th. And you will see here a list of the permitted and discretionary uses. Recommended action is that Council move third reading of proposed bylaw 1774 for the purpose of amending the Land Use Bylaw 1718 by redesignating a 70-acre portion of the northeast of 32, 31, 25 west of 4 from the Agriculture District to the Recreation District. Your options are to move third reading of the proposed bylaw 1774 or to request more information prior to proceeding to third reading.
Thank you, Ms. Hazelton. What are council's wishes?
With the, on the land use bylaw on section 24, do we need to ask for a basic environmental review or not? Does it trigger an environmental review?
Any of that will come through the development process. So yes, we can certainly ask for some of that as well. So there is quite a list of things that they will have to provide through that development.
Councillor McGee.
I move third reading of proposed bylaw 1774 for the purpose of amending the Land Use Bylaw 1718 by redesignating a 70-acre plus portion of the northeast 32, 31, 25 west of 4 from the Agriculture District to Recreation District.
Thank you. Councillor McGee has put a motion on the table before us. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we now move on to 5.5.1, Protective Services, Bylaw 1771. Welcome, Ms. Grossfield. Anytime you're ready, you are more than welcome to proceed.
Thank you very much. Due to changes in federal legislation regarding the legalization of cannabis, consumption of cannabis in public places bylaw is being presented to Council. First reading of bylaw 1771 was passed by Council on July 17th, 2018. The municipal government has been given an opportunity to implement bylaws relating to cannabis retail locations, cannabis recreation production, cannabis medical production, and the public consumption of cannabis. Working with other departments, Protective Services has drafted the cannabis consumption bylaw presented to you today. Public place is defined as any place in which the public has access of right or by invitation, express or implied. The presented bylaw also refers to the entitlement to possess medical cannabis and offenses, enforcement penalties pertaining to the consumption of cannabis in public places. And just to answer the question from last meeting, the numbering in the bylaw has been changed to reflect that grammatical error. And enforcement 6.2, it has been rewritten to state or from issuing a written or verbal warning instead of a violation ticket. In consultation with the peace officers, that is the wording that we need to put in place. Cost is internal resources. However, enforcement services may see an increase in activity. Engagement, at this point, this is a directive decision. We have already had the open house, which was held on August 7th, and we invited comment via email through the website. And the attached bylaw is there for review, and the recommended action is to pass second and third readings of this bylaw.
Thank you, Deb. What are council's wishes?
I would move to pass second reading of bylaw 1771 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. Motion's been made to move second reading. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Councillor Kiever.
I move we hold third reading.
Councillor Kiever has made the motion to accept third reading. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is also carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to number 6, corporate services. 6.1, the bank reconciliation. Welcome, Mr. Morton.
Good morning,
you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Woodstock, Reeve Woodstock, and good morning to other members of council as well. Item 6.1 is the monthly bank reconciliation for the periods of April, May, and June of 2018. And the background is to request council's acceptance of the April to June 2018 bank reconciliation as presented in the attachments. As noted, the bank reconciliation has been completed for the periods indicated. And as you will note, June 30th, 2018, a total of $25 million has been invested into 3 GICs that have been laddered as per the report attached. And this is a directive decision, and of course the attachments are presented in the package, and the recommended action is to accept the April, May, and June 2018 bank reconciliations as information.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions for Mike? What are council's wishes?
Mr. Reeve?
Yes, Mr. Councillor King.
I would make the motion that we receive the April through June 2018 bank reconciliations for information.
Thank you. Councillor King has made the motion to receive for information. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. 6.2, Mr. Morton.
Thank you, Reeve Woodstock. Item 6.2 is a synopsis of the quarterly financial report. And the reporting period is as of June 30th, 2018. So actually signifies halfway through the year as well. The analysis are accompanied in the notes as indicated. Obviously the package is very, very thick and detailed, but these are some of the high level information bullets for your information. I'm going to reference some page numbers as I go along here. You can welcome to write them down or certainly flip through the package while we're going through them if you've had an opportunity to look through it. So the first item is the report cutoff for actual expenditures was June 30th, 2018. So what that means is invoices and work orders received late for that period are included in the next quarterly report. But typically we probably capture 99.5% of those anyway, but that's just the typical waiver. The second item is the overall operating revenue is at 99.67%. That's page 182. And basically that indicates that our revenues are almost all recognized up to the reporting date as of that particular day. And so anything over and above the 100%, of course, is over anticipated what our budget is. And there's a couple reasons for that. And I'll get into one of them in the following points. Expenses are at 49.7%. That's a really significant number, as I indicated earlier, that 50% is halfway through the year. So that's kind of where you want to be at this point in the year. There's a couple of departments I'll indicate that are under for seasonal reasons, but that's later on in another point. That number on the expenditure line is found on page 192. The operating report does show some variances as of June 30th due to the seasonal work that is completed from May to September, and those include the seasonal departments, cemeteries, ag services, recs and bridges, rec department, I should say. Those are just below 40%, and as explained, it's typically because the projects really start to ramp up through the summer periods. So it's fairly easily explainable that those numbers would be below 50%. Number three, the following revenues, well drilling, interest earned, and some planning department fees show higher than budgeted revenue to date. And there's some those indicate to me those are some positive signs of economic activity happening in the county. So those are good numbers to keep our eyes out for going forward. But those are some positive revenues on our variance report. So that's something to be mindful of. Number four, the 2018 tax levy revenue is also included in the report on page 178. And as noted, through the tax rate passing of the bylaw in, I believe it was May, it would be included in the second quarter financial report. So as noted, that's why the tax revenue would be also in the report. Number five, budgeted transfers to reserves have been completed. And you'll see that throughout the operating report on the transfers to reserves line, in particular on pages 183 and 184. Those are the operating, typically those are the operating transfers to reserves. And the reserve schedule is in the attachment that was also included. Number six, page 1 in the project report, which is on 193, shows a net gravel expense of $619,350.39, which accounts for the gravel that was used from our inventory. So that's at the costing of our internal forces that apply the road to the various road projects. So, and again, that's on page 193. So that's what that's how much was actually applied to the projects as of that reporting date. Number seven, the non-tangible capital asset and tangible capital assets have been funded as per the 2018 budget, and those are best explained at the end as they show the reconciliation with our capital budget through pages 194 to 205. So you'll see that the projects have been funded more or less on the accounting side from pages 194 to 205. And lastly, the 3 budget amendments approved by council are also indicated in showing in this report as well. So there was a couple of budget amendments that were made, actually 3, that are actually reflected in the report as well. And this is a directive decision, so this is just for notification purposes. The link to the strategic plan, of course, we're talking finances, so this is fiscal sustainability. And the attachments in detail are indicated in the January to June 2018 reports in your package. And the recommended action, unless there's some questions, of course, is to accept for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. Very detailed report, as usual. Does council have any questions for Mr. Morton? Well, we did have a few days to look over the numbers, so I'm assuming everybody's quite content with where we're at here. We are in sound financial position. If there are no questions, I would be looking for a motion to receive as information.
I'll move to receive this report as per information.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Christie. Motion's been made to receive the January to June 2018 financial reports as presented. Is that correct? Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, next item on our agenda, 7.1, the levy rates for Marigold system, and I guess Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council. 7.1 is indeed the levy rates for Marigold library system. Administration presented to council on June 12th of 2018 an amendment to Schedule C to the Marigold library agreement. Schedule C is the amendment to the Marigold agreement that outlines Marigold's levy rates for municipalities and library boards from 2019 and 2020. At this time, council made a motion to bring back more information to the August 21st, 2018 council meeting, and that information was brought. Schedule C shows that the per capita levy rates will increase to $10.50 in 2019 and $10.74 in 2020. The Marigold agreement states that the Schedule C shall be effective upon receipt of a signed Schedule C amendment from 60% of the parties to this agreement, representing 60% of the people living within the boundaries of the Marigold Library area. Michelle Toombs, the CEO, informed council at the September 11th, 2018 meeting that Marigold has already achieved the 60% on both of those. The cost and source of funding for the increase in levy is the 2019 and 2020 operating budgets. The link to the strategic plan are to think, act regionally, and identify potential shared services and possible delivery options. The attachments to this request are the Marigold Library Schedule C, and the recommended action is that council approve the increase to the 2019 and 2020 levy. Council options are to approve the increase to the 2019 and 2020 levy, or to not approve the increase to the 2019 and 2020 levy.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Are there any questions? What are council's wishes?
Mr. King. Just a quick clarification, Mr. Hogan. My understanding is that once Marigold receives that 60%, those levy rates are set.
Mr. Reeve, members of council, that is correct. The levy rates are set. However, they do request that each municipality consider it and deliberate and get back to them as to whether we agreed or not. There are other options for municipalities who don't want to pay the levy, such as removing themselves from the Marigold system if they would so choose.
Councillor McGee.
I move to approve the Marigold Library Schedule C amendment to the Marigold agreement that outlines Marigold levies rates for municipalities and library boards for 2019-2020.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Motion's been made. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing as none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. I think at this point in time, I would like to call a recess. So fill your cups and we'll start up here as soon as we're ready to go again. Thank you. Okay, I'll bring the council meeting back to order. Our next business on our agenda is 7.2, Ghostpine Orkney Potential Water System. Mr. John, welcome. And you can proceed at whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Reeve, members of council. This morning I bring forth a report that Councillor Jim Hugo read into the minutes on the September 11th, 2018 regular council meeting. It was that council directs administration report to council the estimated costs, source of funding, and source of water for a water line to residents east of Three Hills, and particularly in the Ghostpine and Orkney area. The assumed area that I would take in was Highway 583 south to Township Road 30-0 and east to the county border. There are many valleys, coulees on the eastern border that would factor into this design. Some of the estimated costs that we came up with, and I'd like to just make note that it is very high level, it was kind of based off past numbers and potential future numbers and that sort of thing. So a reservoir with a possible location kind of centrally would be around the intersection of Highway 575 and Range Road 836. That would be secondary Highway 836. And the assumed size would be 450 cubic meters. And of course, this size of the reservoir would be determined on a area that's serviced and the population that's to be serviced. And an estimated cost for one of these above ground reservoirs with the pump house, possibly a truck fill, that sort of thing, is an estimated cost of $2 million. When constructing a water line, it is best practice to have a dedicated fill line to go to that reservoir. And there's three options for actual source water connections for this area. And I just want to make note that none, Aqua 7 nor Three Hills have either been approached of any of this at all. So I just went and did some approximation on the distances to tie into that possible location of the reservoir. And an Aqua 7 tie-in, so their main line runs down around Highway 575. And if we came up the Range Road 22-1, it is approximately 22 kilometers to my proposed location. That may not be the ideal location. And that tie-in line would be approximately $2.2 million. Another option is to tie into the Three Hills trunk line, which is an existing line from the Three Hills reservoir, from the Three Hills water plant into the town of Three Hills, into the reservoir. This is a closer line, and my approximation is about 6 kilometers at about $660,000 for that tie-in. There's also another option, and we have an existing Mount Vernon booster pump that services our existing Mount Vernon system. There would be a possibility of using that to tie in, and that's approximately about 11 kilometer, and so the approximate on that is $1.1 million. The costs look a little bit high, and that's just because the probable size of that line is going to be larger than your normal distribution lines. So once you go up in sizes, you're going to go up in the price as well. And it's also based on directionally drilling, not on the plowing method and that sort of thing. The next item for distribution for estimated costing. Now, again, I looked through the maps and stuff, and I approximate there's about 75 kilometers of pipeline to service approximately 70 residents. So based on numbers, directionally drilling numbers, and that sort of thing, I had an estimated cost of $7.5 million. And that's going to be various sizes of pipes and that sort of thing, depending on how many people, how many has to be served on a certain portion and that sort of thing. When you get into start this project, of course, there's been no engineering. So if this was something that was to be looked at, we would have to go and look at a firm to start some preliminary engineering. And my estimated cost to do that, to get us a good idea of what this project would actually entail and what it would look like, would be about $200,000. I just wanted to make note that Kneehill County, through the recently approved Churchill water system rehabilitation, we also did other engineering on it beforehand that had a full replacement of the Churchill project, and also basically to make a whole new system and expand on that system. And that was approximately 94.8 kilometers of water line, a 450 cubic meter reservoir, pump house, bulk fill station, dedicated fill line, and land costs. And the engineers came back with a total of 14.1 million for that. So I just want to kind of give you that perspective. That was, you know, a few presentations earlier than the one that we actually decided on, but that was the most recent fully engineered system that we did. So the cost of funding, as I said, costs were based on recently engineered projects and is a very high level estimate. The sources of funding as per current policy, the funds would be available in the water reserves, or funds available in the water reserves are as of December 31st or 3.5 and a little bit more change there. So that's kind of where the funding is for it compared to what the costs of that would be. The engagement is a directed decision as it's for information. Linked to strategic plan is viable communities. And you guys have saw that map, and that's where I've just kind of taken more of an assumption of the area that we're looking at. Recommended action is council decision, more, you know, to receive as information. Council options is council decision as well, and the motion would be just for council decision.
Are there any questions for Mr. McKiernan? Councillor Kiever.
The blue lines on this, inside this red area, that indicates there's already water lines there.
That's correct, Councillor Kiever. The blue lines are existing water lines.
Councillor King.
John, I add up your numbers, I come to about 11.9 million. If we put a contingency of about 10% in there, we'd be looking, my number is approximately a little bit over $13 million to potentially do this project, correct?
That's correct, Councillor King.
Does councillors have any other questions for Mr. McKiernan? Councillor King.
Mr. Reeve, in light of the fact that we're currently involved with the Churchill water project and the monies that we're expending there, my motion would be that council receive for information this report at this time.
Okay. Councillor King has made a motion to receive for information. I'll wait until that comes up on the screen. Is that your motion, Councillor King?
Yes, Mr. Reeve, it is.
Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. McKiernan. Our next agenda item, 8.1. Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Members of the Council. 8.1 is regarding the Trochu 2018 Flapjack Fiesta and Community Showcase. An invitation has been received to attend the Trochu Flapjack Fiesta Community Showcase. The scheduled date for the Trochu Flapjack Fiesta and Community Showcase is Wednesday, October 17th, 2018. At the Trochu Community Center from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Cost and source of funding would be out of the 2018 operating budget. The link to the strategic plan is to think and act regionally. You can see the invitation, which is the invitation letter from the Kneehill Regional FCSS. The recommended action is that Council authorize the attendance to the Trochu Flapjack Fiesta and Community Showcase and to advise administration of who will be attending. Your options are that Council approves attendance or the Council does not approve attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. What is council's wishes? Councillor King.
Mr. Reeve, I just want council to be aware that October 17th, I am away in Leduc for elected officials education program that day, and there's possibly no way I'd be back in time to attend. So if there's an alternate councillor, and if we choose to approve attendance, it would have to be someone other than myself.
Okay, thanks for the info.
I'm pretty sure I could attend.
Councillor Christie has suggested he would be able to attend. Does council want to make a motion? Councillor Kiever.
I move Councillor Christie attend the Flapjack Fiesta and Community Showcase.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kiever. Motion's been made to authorize attendance for Councillor Christie. I'll wait for it. Oh, I guess it is up there now. Boy, you're pretty quick on the draw there. Okay, so we have a motion in front of us. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. 8.2, Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council. 8.2 is regards to the town of Trochu request for the Flapjack Fiesta and Community Showcase. We did receive a request by the town of Trochu asking local businesses for door prizes or monetary donations towards the meal of the Flapjack Fiesta and Community Showcase. The event will take place again on Wednesday, October 17, 2018 at the Trochu and District Community Center. Kneehill County has contributed $200 to this event through policy number 15-7, Recreation, Community, Arts and Cultural Events for the preceding 5 years. Cost source of funding, 2018 operating budget to $200 through policy 15-7. The attachments, you can see the town of Trochu request letter and the recommended actions. The council approve a donation in the amount of $200. Council options, the council approves a $200 donation, council approves an amended amount, or the council receives for information.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. What's council's wishes?
Councillor.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Penner.
I would like to approve. I think 200 is a reasonable amount, so I'd like to move that we approve a donation to the town of Trochu in the amount of $200 with the funds coming from the Recreation, Community, Arts and Cultural Events policy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Penner. Motion's been made to approve a donation of 200. Motion's on the screen. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Okay, we're still 20 minutes from public hearings, so let us go on to 10.0, council and committee reports. We have these reports that have been pre-circulated. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Now's the time. It's council's wishes. everything is, oh, Councillor McGee?
I move that we receive the council and committee reports as presented.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor McGee. Okay, Councillor McGee has made a motion to receive council and committee reports as presented. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We're just humping right along here. Number 11, council follow-up action list. Any questions from council? And I'll let you go through it. Councillor Penner.
If nobody has any discussion, I would move that council receive the September 25th council follow-up action list as presented for information.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. The motion has been made to receive council follow-up action list as presented for information. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. And we have a public hearing scheduled for 10 a.m. So at this point, I will recess our council meeting and reconvene for the public hearing at that time. Thank you. Okay, I will now bring council back into session. That being said, I will now recess to go to public hearing. Could I have a motion to move us into public hearing?
I'll make a motion to move into public hearing.
Councillor Christie has made motion to move us to public hearing, bylaw 1773. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I will now go over the procedures for the public hearing. Okay. If any person interested in speaking for or against the proposed bylaw and haven't done so already should register their names on the appropriate speakers list so your names may be correctly recorded into the minutes. If you not have already done so, please see Natalie Miller in the lobby to register your names on that list. The use of audio and video recording devices and cameras by the press or the public is prohibited. I would now like to introduce the members of council at this time, starting from my right.
Debbie Penner.
Wade Christie.
Jerry Whitstock.
Ken King.
Glenn Keever.
Faye McGee.
Also seated with council is Mr. Hogan. He's our Chief Administrative Officer. Individuals speaking for or against the proposed bylaw today will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. A spokesman speaking on behalf of a group petition may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. We have a time clock that will be displayed on the screen. At 2 minutes, it'll turn yellow. At 1 minute, it'll turn red. And when the clock hits 0, there'll be a 5-second warning that your speaking time is complete. All questions to council will be directed to myself as chairman, and I will direct the questions to the person best suited to answer. No questions will be taken from the gallery. No debate will be allowed. When presenting, speakers shall state their name and address. If you have already submitted a letter on or before the advertised deadline, you may only address council at this hearing on new information not contained in your letter. Any person who would like to present using an electronic presentation will bring their USB flash drive to the presenter's desk, where a staff member will open the file at the presenter's laptop. The order of presentations to be made to council today will be, firstly, administration shall present an overview and summary regarding the proposed bylaw. Secondly, the applicant shall state their name and present their application within a time period of 20 minutes. Thirdly, the member of council may ask questions for clarification to the applicant. Fourthly, the chair shall open the floor to presentations from the public who are in favor of the proposed bylaw. The order for these presentations will be in the following order. Administration will come forward and read the written submissions. Individuals will be called in order as they appear on the individual speakers list. Group speakers will be called in the order they appear on the group speakers list. Fifthly, the chair shall open the floor to presentation from the public who are in opposition to the proposed bylaw. The order of those presentations will be in the following order. Administration shall come forward and read the written submissions. Individuals will be called in the order as they appear on the individual speakers list. Group speakers will be called in order as they appear on the group speakers list. Council members are allowed to ask questions of clarification to the individuals/groups speaking to the proposed bylaw. Sixthly, after hearing from those persons on the speakers list in support or opposition, I will ask anyone else present speaking. Anyone else present wishes to speak in support or opposition to the proposed bylaw. Seventh, the applicant will get a chance for a rebuttal, which will be no longer than 10 minutes. Eighth, allow questions for clarifications from council members to the applicant. I will now ask our Planning and Development Department, represented by Barb Hazelton, to come forward to make the presentation. Welcome, Barb. Anytime you're ready, start.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve and members of council. Based on the discussions with council at the May 22nd, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting, the Planning Department is bringing forward some draft revisions to the Land Use Bylaw for council consideration regarding the upcoming legalization of cannabis for both for recreational use mainly. The notification required under the Municipal Government Act has been met. We have advertised 4 times. We have sent our changes to all our adjacent municipalities. And the draft has been on the Kneehill County website for several months for public to be able to comment. Again, I just wanted to reiterate that under the federal government, when they do the approval or when it finally becomes legislated, municipalities have been given the ability to create some boundaries or uses in their land use zoning, in their building codes, fire inspections, permits and licensing, their public spaces, and then by law enforcement in regards specifically to recreational use. So what we're going to look at today is retail sales, production, and processing facilities for both recreation and medical, and then some public consumption. So due to the federal government's upcoming legalization of cannabis, as we said, municipal governments have been given an opportunity to implement bylaws relating to cannabis retail locations, production facilities, and the public consumption of cannabis. Based on the discussions that we've had with you, this is the changes that we're bringing forward. So we already have an existing section in our current land use bylaw that touches base or does address some medical cannabis production facilities. However, we are adding to that based on some of the changes or what we have seen in the legislation. So that's why we're not starting at the beginning. These are just additions into the medical section. And again, for medical production, they do have to rezone to an industrial district. That's the only district that is got them as a use. So we are adding in that the loading facilities have to be fully enclosed, garbage fully enclosed. The site has to be enclosed by a fence, and then a drainage plan is required. Again, we've put in some things to address nuisance, security plan, no retail sales, no dispensary is allowed on site, and then ventilation plan is required, and then a full environmental review may be required as well. With the medical, they also have to comply with the Safety Codes Act, and they have to comply with any of their approvals granted by Health Canada, and a disposal plan is something that we can request as well. So then we've added a completely new section just to address the retail sales and cannabis recreation production facilities. So for the retail sales and recreation production, they do have to rezone to direct control district, and a development permit shall be required for all cannabis retail and cannabis recreation production. Proof of eligibility has to be included with the development permit application. Cannabis recreation production and retail sales facilities shall operate only under applicable federal and provincial licensing, and we do ask for proof of valid federal and provincial licensing, and the activities as approved shall be provided to the Development Authority. All licensed processes and functions shall be fully enclosed within a building. It must include equipment designed and intended to remove odors from the air where it is discharged from the facility as part of a ventilation system. Siting of a cannabis retail production or sales facility is prohibited within 300 meters of a healthcare facility, a school, school reserve parcel, hospital, child care facility, playground, sports playing field, skateboard, bicycle park, zoo, outdoor theater, outdoor splash park or pool, church, community center, rodeo grounds, golf course, cemeteries, and any similar public use facilities. Again, you wanted to go with the Alberta Health Services recommendations, so that's what's been incorporated. And then as well, the separation distances between either retail to retail, which are both cannabis, or retail to a cannabis production, will be not less than 100 meters. So just again, to reiterate, what I have done is just drawn some boundaries around what our current public use areas within our hamlets, just to give you an idea of what that 300-meter buffer looks like. So you'll see double circles or triple circles because you're getting a 300-meter buffer based on every use that's been outlined here. So typically it's your community centers, your ball diamond, your curling rinks, those types of facilities. So in Huxley, again, this is as recommended by Alberta Health Services. This is Swalwell, Torrington, and Wimborne. So regarding how we do those setback distances, so separation distances shall be determined by measuring a straight line from the closest point of the building on the lot on which the cannabis retail, sales use, or cannabis recreational production facility is located to the closest point of the building on the lot for proposed cannabis use. So cannabis to cannabis is building to building, and we will see a picture of that. Hours of operation remain the same as what has been legislated, so 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. And signage for the facility will be limited to the facility itself. And again, just to give you a visual, so setbacks from retail building to retail building or recreational production to recreational production, whatever combination that is. So it will be building to building. However, the setback distances for cannabis retail sales or cannabis recreation production to a public use facility or area shall be measured from the closest point of the proposed facility to the property line of any other specified public use as noted. Retail locations are restricted from selling any cannabis-infused edible products, and they also are prohibited from having any stock that is not contained in a secure location. Again, lots of that is in their provincial requirements. So again, just the visual. So when you are going to be cannabis retail or production to a public use area, it goes from the building to the property line. That way it allows that public use area room to grow. So for example, if it's the school and they needed to add a playground or whatever, they still have that space to do that. Additional requirements are, again, the garbage container is fully contained inside the building. A security plan has to be approved by the county. Public utility and waste management plan may be required as a condition of the development permit. And again, we're dealing with how are they going to dispose of their waste and then how they're going to connect, for example, if they're on our water line, how they're going to get sufficient water to address their needs. So they may have to provide that to us as well, depending on how large the site they're proposing. Notification. So before granting a development permit for a cannabis retail sale or cannabis recreational production facility, we are committing to notifying in writing property owners within a half mile of the proposed. We already do this in the rural areas, it's a half mile, but if, for example, they were to be sited close to an urban, we would be doing the full half mile for the urban as well. So just so that you're aware, we have put this in on purpose. They do have the same time frame we give everyone else to provide comment back to us, and then those comments do need to be considered from the development authority. There were a few other things that while we had the bylaw open, we wanted to do some clarification and just to do a little bit of cleanup because there are a couple things that when we were working it, we just needed to clarify. So one of those areas, we do have creative architecture as a use. So people are allowed to do tiny homes, cargo texture homes, which are your CCAN housing or buildings or those types of things, or grain bin housing. So we do have an opportunity for people to do really unique developments. However, we did not include the section originally. So we have added this section just to give us a little bit more of how to outline that. And again, they do have to have permanent foundations. These are permanent housing types. And then if they were to, for example, come in with the country residential application where they wanted to do tiny homes, this is saying that all of the sites would have to have tiny homes. So we have equal values next door to each other per se. So we've just added this as a clarification section for those uses. Garden suites, we've clarified those. We had setback requirements in there where they couldn't exceed a certain foot away from the primary residence, but we're seeing these in a lot of farmyard sites where that is problematic. And so we have said that they have to be established within the primary residential yard. And again, a reminder that garden suites can never be subdivided out. They stay with the primary residence, which is why we want them up tight and close, and they can share services. Wind energy conversion system. We've done some clarifications in this section because we've had some questions. So our current setback is a half a mile from a dwelling that does not belong to the owner on the land in which the tower is to be proposed or located. And we have a lot of undeveloped residential parcels that have been subdivided for that specific purpose. So we thought we needed to protect those in some way as well. So we are going to include an undeveloped parcel that has been subdivided specifically as a residential use. So, however, we have also said that the current owner of the dwelling or the subdivided residential parcel not belonging to the owner of the land may waive the half-mile setback required by providing notice in writing to the Development Authority. So there is still that ability for them to work with the developer, but we just are setting that as the line just to protect both types of properties. And then we had a few other things that we have added again. Under section 8 in the land use bylaw, notification in hamlets will be to contiguous properties only. That wasn't clear in our bylaw, and we were having to do a half mile, which is a lot of notification, and people aren't, it's a little far away to get comments. So we have done it to contiguous only as per the MGA. Section 5512, we've added the food trucks and mobile vendors require a permit. Again, that was something new that policy has just passed to allow that. Section 76, we've clarified that signs will be permitted through the same process as the use. If the use is permitted, the sign is permitted. If the use is discretionary, the sign is discretionary. However, any sign over 64 square feet will automatically be considered discretionary. So that will come to the Planning Commission. And then section 53.4 has been revised to better reflect the building code requirements for geothermal energy systems. So we've just tried to match what the building code says there. And then we've included quite a few definitions to go into the back of our land use bylaw to clarify all of the cannabis uses and what that actually means. I'm not going to go through and read them all. Some of the words I'm not sure if I could say them right, but anyway, so we do have a definition for cannabis, which is taken out of the Act. Cannabis accessory, cannabis infused edibles, cannabis license, cannabis oil, cannabis recreation production facility, cannabis retail sales, cannabis suppliers, licensed cannabis dealers, licensed cannabis premises, licensed cannabis producer, and then we've also included marijuana, and then medical cannabis production facility, and an enforcement officer we've added just to clarify that that definition wasn't in our past one. So that's just another one we've added. We did get responses from several municipalities, none of which had any concerns with the changes that we were recommending to our land use bylaw, and you will see the list there. Their letters have been included in your package in their completion, so you've got that. And then we did not receive any written submissions in favor or in opposition.
Thank you, Barb. I've learned a lot more about cannabis than I cared to, but thank you so much. Does council have any questions for the planner? Looks like there's no questions for the planner. I'll go through this as it's written here, Barb. I will now ask the applicant, which I guess is Kneehill County, but there will be no presentation because our staff has done that. I'll ask administration to come forward and read written submissions that are in favor of the bylaw. I don't have any. I will now call on individuals in the order they appear on the individual speakers list in favor of the bylaw to come forward and make the presentation. I have the speakers list here. There is no one on it. I will ask for individuals speaking as a group to come forward, and there is no one from a group that will be speaking. Administration to come forward and read submissions that are in opposition. We have no letters of opposition. I will now call on individuals in the order they appear on the individual speakers list in opposition. There are none. I will now call on individuals in the order they appear on the group list in opposition of the bylaw to come forward for the presentation. There are none. So I will ask one final time, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support or in opposition of the proposed bylaw 1773? Okay, there is no one. Let the record show. Does the applicant wish to offer a rebuttal? I believe that's a no. Does council have any further questions for the applicant? Does not look like it. I will now declare the public hearing closed and ask for a motion to go back into regular council meeting. Councillor McGee.
I moved that the public hearing be closed and we go back into regular meeting.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Motion's been made to go into, oops, motion moved. Okay, I'll wait for it to come up. Okay, Councillor McGee moved the public hearing to be closed at 10:21 a.m. All those in favor? That is carried. I will now move us back into regular council session. Okay, we will move on to the next item in our agenda, 12.1, legal, section 24 and section 27. Could I have a motion to move us into closed session?
Mr. Reeve, I would make that motion that we go into closed session.
Councillor King has made a motion to go into closed session. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, could I have a motion to bring council back into open session?
I so move.
McGee. Councillor McGee moves to return to open session. Open meeting will work. It's on the screen. Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Do we have any motions coming out from closed session? Councillor Penner?
I'd like to motion to direct administration to proceed with the land lease with Artist Resources.
Mr. Reeve, members of council, just a clarification, it's Artist Exploration Limited.
Thank you, Al. Okay, we have the motion on the screen before us. Is that your motion, Councillor Penner?
Correct.
Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing as none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. We will go to disposition of delegation and public hearing business 9.1, land use. Welcome back, Ms. Hazelton. And you can proceed whenever you are ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council. We are coming back. We had just noted the public hearing for the land use bylaw amendments. So again, due to the federal government's upcoming legalization of cannabis, municipal governments have been given an opportunity to implement bylaws relating to cannabis retail locations, production facilities, and the public consumption of cannabis. Kneehill County is currently updating our land use bylaw to prepare for this change. Based on the discussions that were held with council on the May 22nd, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting, the Planning Department is bringing forward some draft revisions to land use bylaw for council consideration regarding the upcoming legalization of cannabis use. Planning has also taken the opportunity to make some minor changes to some sections of the land use bylaw to bring clarification to these sections to ensure consistent uses. All those additions have been included in the draft document. The one that you have in the council package now is the complete new one with all the changes accepted. Public consultation was held on August 7th, 2018 regarding the proposed changes. The draft has been available for several months to the public through our website or through the office. And then we also had the public hearing September 25th, 2018, today at 10 o'clock. Planning has also made some further amendments, which we will highlight quickly. Notifications in hamlets to contiguous properties only, as per the MGA. We have added a section regarding creative architecture. Again, this was a use that was added in the last version of the bylaw, but the accompanying section had not been included. Requiring food truck and mobile vendor permits has been added. We've included an undeveloped parcel that has been subdivided for residential purposes in the setback requirement for a wind tower. And then the required setback for a wind tower may be waived by the current owner by submitting a written notice to the Development Authority under Section 67. In the new bylaw, it's Section 68. All those section numbers have been updated just because we've added a couple new sections. So we've removed the sign size restrictions and have replaced with any size over 64 square feet is considered to be discretionary. We've included all the uses from the agricultural business district into the agricultural district. We have revised section 53.4 under the geothermal energy systems to better reflect the building code requirements. And then we have also made an amendment to section 56, housing garden suite. We've removed the maximum distance of 40 feet and noted it must be located within the developed yard site. So the planning or the options for council are to council to move second reading of proposed land use bylaw 1773 and that council move third reading of proposed bylaw 1773. Options are those two as well. Council could request further information prior to moving third reading of the proposed land use bylaw 1773. It needs to be noted in your package, you've been given a group of maps. These are the zoning maps that get attached to Schedule A to the land use bylaw. Jeff will be working on this hard to create actual township by township versions of these. And you also at the back of your public hearing package got a spreadsheet, and that includes any of them. We wanted to make sure we hadn't missed any because there was some time gap between the two GIS people. So we want to ensure that that spreadsheet is included as part of Schedule A, and that also includes the one that was just approved earlier today. So those all become part of Schedule A, and then we will get those updated into the map documents, and Jeff will create those township by township.
Thank you, Ms. Hazelton. Are there any questions for Barb from council? It doesn't look like it. Must still be fresh in our minds, Barb. You're doing a great job there. What are council's wishes? Councillor McGee.
I move that second reading be given to bylaw 1773.
Thank you. I'll wait for it to come up on screen. Thank you. Councillor McGee has moved second reading to bylaw 1773. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Is there any desire to go to third? Councillor King.
Mr. Eve, I will move that we do third reading and to bylaw 1773.
Thank you, Councillor King. I'll wait for that to come up on screen. All right. Deputy Reeve King has moved third reading to bylaw 1773. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. That brings us to the end of our agenda. So I will move adjournment at 11:26. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank Municipal Affairs for attending the meeting. Well, we tried to shorten it up just